I'm going to show you how to spot the hidden draft talent that everyone else is missing. Because if you even understand just the basics of sprint mechanics and what to look for, the 40-yard dash goes from a useless stopwatch number to a cheat code for identifying elite value. Today, we're going to be starting with the linebackers and the edge rushers that are participating in this year's NFL Combine. Let's get into it. First up, we're looking at Arvell Reese, the stud linebacker from Ohio State. He clocked a 4.53 in the 40, which is honestly a solid time for a guy his size, but let's dive into the mechanics because this is wild. Right out of the gate, he's off balance. He drives out way too low and has to plant his foot early just to avoid face planting. By his third step, he's flat footing hard, and his external rotators are so tight that his right foot actually yanks out to a 45-degree angle. By step 5, he's already popped completely upright, totally killing his acceleration phase. Then come the heel strikes. From step 4 on, it's some of the worst I've ever seen, actually. He's spilling all of his energy out the back, and as his legs fall apart, his arms devolve into this swimming, flailing motion across his body. He's just stumbling and muscling his way to the finish line. So why does this actually matter? Heel striking means he's literally hitting the brakes with every single step. And for a linebacker, that early pop-up completely kills his get-off. NFL offensive tackles are going to get right under his pads and stonewall him before he even builds steam. Plus, muscling through every play means he's going to gas out incredibly fast on longer drives and spike his risk for hamstring pulls. Raw power brute forced that 4.53, but these mechanics definitely cap his ceiling. For an overall grade, he's actually going to get a D+. If he fixes the foot strike, he's going to unlock way more. But until then, it's a D+. Next up is TJ Parker, the edge rusher from Clemson. He posted a 4.68 in the 40 with a 1.62 10-yard split, which isn't bad for his build, but let's look a little bit closer. His takeoff is definitely a step up from Arvell Reese. He shows solid ankle stiffness through his first 3 steps, and his head stays perfectly relaxed. He's got decent range of motion for a big edge rusher as well. But right around step 3, there's a massive core disconnect. He violently yanks his shoulders back and pops his torso completely upright. And the second he bails on that acceleration phase, his lower body falls apart. By step 6, he's flat-footing and outright heel striking way out in front of his body. His arms have a great backswing, but they start crossing his chest and stalling out instead of actually driving him forward. So why should you care? Well, the torso popping up turns his forward explosion into a more of a vertical grind. So on Sundays, if he pops straight up off the line of scrimmage, offensive tackles are going to mirror him easily because he loses that sustained horizontal burst. And just like we saw with Reese, that heel striking hits the brakes on every stride. He might win on raw power, but that core disconnect means he'll struggle to dip the edge or reset explosively on a pass rush without gassing out. For an overall grade, I'm giving him a C+. Clean up the foot strike and the core stability, and he bumps up to a solid B+. Next up is Sonny Styles, the 6'5", 245-pound linebacker out of Ohio State. He ripped off a 4.46 in the 40 with a ridiculous 43.5-inch vertical, which is just wild. He's incredibly explosive off the line with an elite first step. Now, here's a really great rule of thumb for football players at the combine, or really if you get a tight end or a wide receiver in a game running, it really has to be a fade. But watch where they land on their 7th step. If they hit the 11-yard mark with solid form, that's an indicator of elite force application. And Styles easily hits that mark. His posture is outstanding the entire way, which is a huge win over the torso pops that we saw earlier. And he has solid ankle stiffness and great thigh drive. But he's incredibly tight. He never hits full triple extension, always holding back with a slight knee bend. By the back half of the run, that excess tension takes over and his neck strains, and there's a mild heel strike that starts to creep in, along with some overstriding, and he just tries to muscle his way to the finish instead of flowing. That initial burst and elite posture are excellent for blitzing and staying low through traffic, but that overall tightness is, in fact, a red flag. Because he isn't getting full glute and hip extension, he's leaking power, which I get it. It sounds ridiculous when you consider what he actually registered here. But in open field pursuit on long drives, that mechanical strain means he's going to gas out much faster than a looser athlete. Elite traits got him that time, but that tension limits his overall dominance. Overall, he's getting an A-. I'm not going to I'm not going to, knock him too hard for this. It's an outstanding run for his size, but if he spends a little less time on, max squats and a little more time on a foam roller to unlock that extension, he's running low 4.4s easily. Moving on to Trey Moore, the edge rusher from Texas. He clocked a 4.54 with a 1.6 10-yard split. Solid numbers on paper, absolutely, but his mechanics tell a much different story. He has a great burst and solid ankle stiffness on step 1, but the drop off after that is crazy. By step 2, his heel collapses and his arms are already stopping short. Remember our 7th step rule? Moore only hits about 10 yards by step 7. For a 6'2" guy, those are incredibly choppy, stabby strides. He's running like Darren Sproles or Maurice Jones-Drew. By 16 yards, he's fully upright with his hips tipped back and his arms crossing his chest like he's pledging allegiance instead of driving forward. He just looks kind of like a tight piece of rebar with skin on it. His external rotators are yanking his feet out, meaning that his hamstrings are doing all of the work to drag him down the field. So what does this mean for Sundays? Well, that choppy stride that you see and the early upright posture, those are going to make it a nightmare for him to turn the corner on a pass rush. NFL tackles will redirect him easily because he's leaking all of his horizontal power straight up into the air. Plus, relying entirely on tight, overloaded hamstrings instead of a fluid stride, that's a massive red flag for muscle pulls during a long season. Raw weight room strength gets him a 4.54, but poor force application caps his on-field explosiveness. For his grade, he gets a C-. If he dials in the flexibility and arm drive, he gets a lot more out of it. Next up is Cassius Howell, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. He ran a 4.59 with a 1.58 10-yard split. He did not have very elite jumps, though, but let's look at the film. His starting stance is insane. He's practically pointing his torso down towards the ground, but his initial burst is actually really good. He shows solid ankle stiffness on that first landing, and his arm action is an absolute A+. It's easily some of the most violent, elite form arms we've seen so far. But watch what happens around step 5. He kicks his front leg out hard, extends his knee, and paws violently at the ground. He's basically taking top-end drive phase mechanics and slapping them right into his acceleration phase. Because of this mismatched form, he pops fully upright by 12 yards. As for our 7th step rule, he hits about 10.5 yards. Better than Trey Moore, but short of that elite 11-yard mark. The good news, those violent arms and stiff ankles scream potential for elite hand fighting and swim moves to manipulate blockers. The bad news, aborting his acceleration phase that early ruins his get-off consistency. By popping upright and overstriding, he's creating braking forces instead of exploding horizontally into the tackle. It breaks my heart as a sprint coach, but an edge rusher has to prioritize a violent acceleration phase over top speed drive mechanics. For this reason, he gets a C+, because for the most part, for every positive, there's a matching negative. Moving on, we get to R. Mason Thomas, the edge rusher from Oklahoma. He ran a 4.67 with a 1.63 10-yard split, and while he weighed in at 241 pounds, he honestly looks closer to like 255, 260 here. Let's break it down. His first step is below average, and his ankle is already starting to collapse. By step 2, his left ankle fully caves in, and he's just stomping the ground. He's also stepping laterally a little bit, pushing his energy sideways instead of straight down the field. Checking our 7th step rule, he hits about 10.5 yards, but it's pure unrefined brute force. His arm drive is actually a bright spot, but halfway through the run, his chin pops up. His torso fights to stay solid, but his neck pulls his whole body upright. From there, he starts kicking out, overstriding, and landing completely flat-footed. Overall, there is zero ankle stiffness here. That lateral stepping means he's leaking valuable energy sideways. Brute force is great for a phone booth bull rush, but that complete lack of ankle stiffness absolutely kills his explosive get-off. NFL tackles will drop their anchor before he even builds up steam. Plus, if he plays with that chin up on film, he's going to expose his chest and lose leverage instantly on run defense. For these reasons, he gets a D+ for now. The ankle stiffness is the true killer here. However, if you fix that and fix the head placement, he's running low 4.5s with B- potential. Our penultimate athlete is Malachi Lawrence, the edge rusher from UCF. He threw down a 4.52 with a 40-inch vertical at 253 pounds. This is a big dude. So let's see how he moves. He has a great first step with big, violent arms. He projects incredibly well off the line, gradually rising instead of popping up early. On his 7th step, he hits right around that elite 11-yard mark, which perfectly explains his massive jumps in 1.59 split. The guy just knows how to apply force. But watch his 3rd step. Those external rotators I've mentioned multiple times kick in, and his right foot points completely sideways at the camera. Then, around 18 yards, his chin starts rising. That pulls his hips backwards into a posterior tilt, and even though his foot is landing in a decent spot, he ends up flat-footing because his upper body is literally falling backwards. Breaks in his kinetic chain waste valuable energy instead of driving him to the quarterback. His raw force application screams high ceiling pass rusher, but that backward tilt and stiffness are going to make it incredibly tough for him to cleanly turn the edge. If he's consistently fighting his own mechanics, he's risking hamstring strains on long drives. Overall, he earns a B. If he loosens up those external rotators with a lacrosse ball and keeps his chin down, honestly, this guy could be an absolute nightmare for offenses. And finally, wrapping up our combine breakdowns, David Bailey, the edge rusher from Texas Tech. He clocked a blazing 4.5 in the 40 at 6'4" and 251 pounds. Let's take a look. Good God, that is a violent takeoff with a really good first step. He only hits about 10 yards at step number 7, though. He actually loses balance between steps 1 and 2. His heel collapses, and those now infamous tight external rotators yank his foot sideways. He also has a notable left to right imbalance, and his arm drive regresses quickly because of incredibly tight shoulders. But here's why he still ran a 4.5. His body positioning is phenomenal. His torso and head posture are easily the best we've seen in this entire group. That elite posture and violent explosiveness are absolute weapons for staying low through contact and winning off the snap. But his mobility limits are glaring. Tight shoulders are a death sentence for hand fighting and shedding NFL offensive linemen. Without that range of motion, it's game over. Plus, leaking lateral energy with that stiff lower body means he's going to gas out on long pursuits and risk straining those imbalanced legs. Overall, he gets a solid B+. The explosiveness and posture carry him. But if he were to get into, like yoga and fixes his flexibility, he runs low 4.4s with all-pro potential. If you enjoyed this, I'm doing similar videos for tight ends, wide receivers, running backs, offensive linemen, defensive backs, and probably even quarterbacks because why not? So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of these.